Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us today for our 2025 Cybersecurity Trends and Threat Landscape webinar. We're excited about this discussion. Today, we'll break down the biggest cybersecurity trends and evolving threats that every SMB needs to know, along with showing Adlumin's XDR platform and MDR service. My name is Chris Nation, and I'm the marketing manager here at Mirazad. Before we begin, I want to let you know we will have a few opportunities at the end of the webinar for discussion and any questions you may have. So feel free to put any of those questions into the chat throughout the webinar, and we'll be able to address those near the end. Additionally, for anyone attending the webinar today, we'll be emailing you a free copy of the 2025 Annual Threat Report, SMBs in the Crosshair, packed with real data and practical takeaways to guide your security strategy this year. With that, I'm excited to kick things off and introduce our speaker. Paul Whittier is an accomplished cybersecurity leader with over 25 years of experience in the technology sector. As the principal cybersecurity advisor at Enable for Adlumin, Paul collaborates with account managers across various sectors, ensuring top-tier cybersecurity solutions for clients. Paul's been a speaker at numerous conferences and regularly talks on the security landscape, as well as the necessary steps to stay protected in our ever-evolving environment. With that, Paul, I'm excited to turn things over to you for the discussion.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to speak to your audience, and I look forward to being able to talk more about cybersecurity and all the things that we're seeing. Wow, it is an ever-changing environment, and just there's so many things that we have to be aware of and things that we have to do now. So I'm excited to be able to share with you some of the things that we're seeing at the Enable side and Adlumin side of the house. And I've been in cybersecurity for a long time, and I can kind of go back to some of my roots, going back 10, 15 years ago, working for a firewall company. And I remember when the first customer got breached, and it really felt bad. Like it was really more of an anomaly to be able to see these things happen. And you're like, hey, your firewall let the attacker in, and now we got breached. And that kind of activity seems like it's almost happening daily. We hear about it from customers that have been breached, or they're looking for some other way to improve their cybersecurity. And I really like this slide because you kind of look at just the overall perspective of what's happening. Just read these stats real quick, right? 20 ransomware attempts every 20 ransomware attempts every second. Like, I don't know who can keep up with that. The total damages, right? $6 trillion by 2026. I remember just a few years ago, we'd talk about this whole problem of threat landscape and cybersecurity criminal and how much damages they'd cause. It was as big as Walmart, right? Or something like a big company. Now it's like the size of a government, large governments. And that kind of tells you that this problem's not going to go away. It's being well funded. Going back to some of the founders of Adlumin, Tim Evans, one of our founders, he was colonel in the military, a commander of a hacking squadron. And I'd asked him, at the NSA, you must have done some interesting things to be able to get into, into these accounts that, that you're trying to hack into from the military perspective. And I'd say, you must have used malware, or, how'd you do it? And he always said it was phishing, right? Phishing was the way that the military would end up getting in. And sometimes Tim would say, hey, we'd become the ad administrator. We'd become that administrator, we'd get in, and then we'd become the best administrator they ever had. And then just, the frequency, every 39 seconds. It's hard to even imagine that this stuff is going on. Just last week, sometimes I like to talk about the hack of the day. We saw big airports like London Heathrow get shut down, along with other European airports. And those get in the news. But what you're not seeing is the smaller customers that are being affected every single day and just not making the news. It's irrelevant. When you're big as London Heathrow and you get you get shut down, you're going to see a lot of activity. But if you're just a small clinic or a community bank, there's a good chance that you're not going to have any press on that. But the problem's getting bigger. At Adlumin, I started when we had just 60 customers. Today, we've got about 8,000 to 9,000 customers. And so the report that you're going to get is actually a breakdown of what we're seeing from our SOC. Now, I understand that this is like a poll, right? An 8,000 customer poll that tells you what we're seeing in our SOC. But I think it is relevant to show you that there's a tremendous amount of activity going on. So over the last year, we processed literally trillions of events. But then you break that down into the alerts that get produced out of that. You're talking about 490,000, security escalations in the 83,000s, and 963 incident bridges. What an incident bridge is where an advanced analyst at Adlumin is going to have to get involved and work with the customer on something more specific or more, more than just an alert. There's more to it than that. So as you can see, out of 8,000 customers, the amount of just pure alerts and things that are happening is pretty tremendous. To kind of look at this in another perspective, there's a big trend out there for a lot of people wanting to go with an MDR that's endpoint centric. And a lot of people will think that, if I'm buying one of these top brand products that are MDR focused and they're more focused on the endpoint. Now they're starting to evolve. People are starting to understand that you can't just look at the endpoint. Just like back in the early days of the firewall, people would think that you could just buy a really good firewall. Well, most of our users aren't even behind the firewall today. So where are we seeing the threats come from? Well, we have an agent that sits on the system, and we're seeing, number one, our own agent is detecting. The agent's detecting user anomalies, it's detecting hacking techniques, it's detecting ransomware and data exfiltration. So we're starting to see that as the number one source of detections from our overall platform. Endpoint detection and response, this is going to be your EDRs, your MDRs, your different endpoint security products. So yes, it is still a significant part of what's happening. But I'd say one of the most dangerous things that's happening out there is a lot of stuff's moving to cloud. We're seeing a lot of cloud breaches. 44% of the breaches in general are coming from cloud. This is your Office 365. This is AWS. This is Salesforce. These are cloud resources that are getting breached. And then once they breach those resources, they'll move inside the network. But this just shows you that it can't just be endpoint centric. Our data exists all over the place today. And then, another big one would be identity and access management. Again, going back to what I said earlier, if an attacker can become the identity of an administrator, if they can become part of the system, it makes an attack very, very efficient and easy. They don't have to bypass security tools. They are now part of the system. And those type of attacks are very, very difficult to defend against if you don't have the proper tooling to be able to look for those things. How are we managing this, wave of, alerts and things that are happening? AI and automation is going to be the key, right? To be able to keep up. We could keep hiring people, and we are continuing to hire more and more people, and you can get an army of people. But the amount of volume that any SOC starting to deal with will be too much. It'll be too much to be able to handle. So over the course of a year, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing, either from automation. Some of it's being manually acted, but we're disabling accounts, we're resetting password, we're isolating systems. Some of the other things that are happening is we are telling Windows Defender to scan, or we're remediating or extending endpoint remediation at some level. So this is kind of showing you, out of all those different things that are happening, there's 23,000 things that are being executed from an automation perspective to be able to handle the amount of things that are happening from the SOC perspective. And again, to be able to produce and to be able to go after and to stop the adoption of AI and machine learning, I know these are all buzzwords, AI, machine learning, and there's different types of AI technologies that exist out there. There's large learning models, there's analytics, there's different types of things that are happening. And we're starting to see adoption of all the different types. But I would say to be able to respond faster and to be able to do it in a way that makes sense to, be able to quickly, whether it's day or night, and not even wait 15 minutes. Our SLA or SLOs on our SOC is that a human's going to look at something within 15 minutes. Well, 15 minutes, as you can see, the breakout times can be, even less than 8 minutes. So when the attackers will get in, yes, we'll hear about these stories about the attacker being inside the environment for long periods of time, figuring out where the crown jewels are, figuring out where the backups are to be able to disable them or to be able to write over them or whatever they can do to make it so that you're unrecoverable. But the time that it actually happens, the time that a breach actually happens, they're all automated. They're being automated by scripting. They're using PowerShell. They're using tools that are able to push all this stuff very, very quickly. And some of these tools are being sold off from attackers as commodities. You can go to a store on the dark web and you can buy these tools. Phishing emails have gotten a lot better with AI. Instead of having spelling errors and problematic, they can use logos off the web. They can use AI to create phishing emails, and just making the whole bar to enter into the cybersecurity attack surface is just so much easier. And so if the attackers are going to start automating and using AI to be able to attack us, we're going to have to be able to leverage that same sort of power back at them. And that's a lot of the things that the Adlumin team has been working on from the very beginning. We started a cloud native data analytic driven platform in 2016, and that's continued to evolve. It was cloud first from the very beginning. It was AI and automation, and all that stuff continues today to continue to improve and get better over time. As you can see, that augmenting a human team with AI and machine learning, that it's allowing our team to be able to augment the talent. There's a massive shortage in cybersecurity talent out there today. In fact, I talked to a lot of SMBs. Nearly none of them have someone. If you're under 500 people in your environment, there's a good chance you don't have someone dedicated to cybersecurity, meaning that that person who's in IT will also be responsible for a lot of other tasks, whether it's patching, whether it's help desk, and so many other things that they're going to be responsible for. So being able to have AI, machine learning, helping us to be able to augment talent, identify threats faster, and accelerate the response. This allows the Adlumin team to be able to spend more time proactively looking for threats, researching threats, trying to find out the next thing that the attackers are going to do. And in this ever-changing environment of what's happening, we have to be able to look at this and be able to respond so much faster. Now, I've spent a lot of time lately, and I kind of mixed this presentation into two pieces. And the one is kind of what's happening in the SOC, and that's what we just went over. Two is, what do you really need to be protected? And some people might be surprised that when I say that it's not going to be just products. It's not going to go, you're not going to go out and buy a solution and that's going to be the end of it. And I really like frameworks. I work with a lot of compliance and frameworks, whether it's frameworks for banking or PCI or healthcare for HIPAA. But I think a good general framework that a lot of people are starting to adopt is the NIST framework. It's one that we use quite heavily at Enable. And the idea is that we will identify, we will protect, we will detect, respond, and recover. And there's going to be different things that we have to do inside of this cycle that an attack will look like. And the speed that we do these things will make all the difference, and the products that we use, and who we're doing and how we're doing this, all these things will start to matter. And so the unique thing, and I came from the Adlumin side, we got bought by Enable in November of last year. And you'll start to see why this makes sense from an acquisition perspective. And you look at what Enable's doing now is the company started with N-Central, which is monitoring and managing systems and IT assets. So this will be things like pushing out software, patching software, remoting into systems, setting automation and security policy, monitoring those systems for event failures and things like that. So that's the identify part. The protect side and detect side and respond side will be more along the security operations side where Adlumin fits. This will be the the MDR, the endpoints. We actually partner with SentinelOne here, but you can use any endpoint product that you'd like. We've also got a mail security product, and all these things are here to help prevent and contain threats that will be coming. And I can't speak enough. I would say anything you do that you put in place, you're going to want to have redundancy on top of redundancy. And data backup continues to be kind of the end game. Yes, we absolutely want to and hope we can stop a cyber threat long before we get to ransomware and data recovery. But I've seen many customers, far too many customers, get to that data recovery side and they don't have any backups. The attackers are very good at going after them. People will say they're they've got immutable backups turned on, they'll think they have it turned on, yet the attacker somehow figures out how to write it over. Somehow immutable backups haven't been turned on. So with Cove, it's the Enable's backup strategy. It's our product for data backup. And we've really switched this whole market upside down where we've taken the approach of backing up to the cloud first, and then allowing you to replicate on-prem, which is almost completely opposite of what traditional backups have been. It's backing up on-prem and then replicating to cloud. This is completely upside down. And as you look at the NIST framework and what's inside there, you're going to see all the different solutions that kind of play into that identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Where the Adlumin story fits is in the MDR space, but you're going to see that, whether it's recovery to identify, that the Enable story now really spans across all the different aspects, whether it's devices or apps or people, network, internet, cloud. You really have to look at the entire scope of everything and where your data may reside. And the Enable story is one where we start to plug in the different solutions that we offer to be able to answer that entire problem that SMBs and mid-market and then even enterprise are starting to have. But it's the idea that we have to be able to have this layer of security, and there's different products and solutions that will plug into that. When we talk about frameworks, some of them can be very long, like the NIST frameworks, over 150 questions. And so for a lot of smaller customers, I really like to break this down into something more simple. And I think the more simple way of breaking this down is, what does cyber insurance require? As more and more customers are not only realizing that they need cyber insurance, they're also realizing that the cyber insurance policies, depending on how you answer the questionnaire, the pricing will be different on the type of technologies and the solutions that you have in place. And these are kind of the baseline of things that you have to have in place for cybersecurity insurance. And these are things that I would recommend, and I've seen from my experience, that if you can do these things, and this would be your short list of, if I can do these things, and I'm not even saying it all has to be from Adlumin or Enable, you have to be able to do these things. These are raw minimums of what you have to do. And you kind of break it down. You've got to have EDR in place. You've got to have an MDR or SIM in place. Multi-factor authentication, backups, having them immutable, data privacy encryption, things like having BitLocker turned on, encryption at rest, encryption in travel. One of the big ones that just being way overlooked right now would be patching. You have to be able to make sure that you're patching within those 60-day release windows, and I would say even earlier in most cases. The faster you can get a patch out, the better, and making sure that you understand what your vulnerabilities are, and then making sure that those vulnerabilities are patched. We're seeing a lot of attacks where, for example, there was one just recently with the Sonic Wall, and I'm not just picking on Sonic Wall. Every firewall vendor's had these, but there's a vulnerability where if the firewall is not patched, then the attacker can basically show up on that network without any authentication needed. And so patching, there's just a lot of things that have to be done around patching, whether it's firewall patching to system level patching. If you don't have a patching solution that's working, we've got a couple different options for you. Adlumin offers a fully managed patch solution, white glove approach, where we'll do the patching, the vulnerability scanning and patching for you. The N-Central product has vulnerability and patching capabilities in that product. So you just really have, I know I'm spending a lot of time on patching. Patching is very important. Security awareness training. Again, we use KnowBe4. We offer a managed service around that. You don't have to use KnowBe4, but you should be doing some sort of phish simulation training. You should be training your employees on what to look for. And then again, business controls. There's a million things that we could talk about that, but this is kind of your baseline of what is for sure required. And I kind of look at it from an easy perspective. These are the things you must have in place. We're going to, we're getting almost to the end of the slides, and we're going to actually get into the actual demo. And what we're seeing here is really what the Adlumin MDR platform is. And the advantages that we have is we'll start to look at whatever a customer has. We're not dictating the type of solution. So if you want a particular endpoint, you want to use CrowdStrike, or you want to use Defender, you want to use Sophos, you want to use SentinelOne, whatever product it is, you want to use Google, you want to use Microsoft Azure, right? Whatever those technologies, whatever firewall technology it is, whatever identity it is, whether you're using some other identity stuff for two-factor, including Okta, Duo, you're using Entra ID and stuff like that. Whatever security tools and telemetry, Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever systems we're talking about, we want to be able to take that data sources and pull it all into one central place, and that is the Adlumin MDR platform or XDR platform. Really, the difference between XDR and MDR is XDR is the platform, MDR is the service that sits on top of that. So as we start to pull all that data telemetry in, some of the things that make Adlumin unique is these are very difficult products to be able to deploy typically. SIMs in general are very, very difficult, not an SMB product. However, what we've done is we've made it very much accessible to smaller customers that wouldn't be able to do this. A lot of times a SIM could take 6 months to a year to really implement, set up the rules, the monitoring, the reporting, to do everything that you really need to do. So what Adlumin does is we'll take all this telemetry in and set up all the proper detections, the rules, the reporting, everything that you need right out of the box in that 60 to 90 minute window. And not only do we set it up, but it's being maintained by the Adlumin team. This is a cloud-based product. If we want to write a new rule or a new report, it'll automatically be updated into the Adlumin platform without you having to do anything. The next thing that I really like to talk about, what I'd say the Adlumin advantages are, is not just rapid deployment, but it's what we're doing with the data once it gets into the platform. And so we're doing some really unique things around compliance and what I would call security posture. So the first thing we'll do is we'll bring in Active Directory. We'll look at things like users, if they're privileged on the local level or domain level. We're going to look at security policy, like group policy. We're going to look at some what I would call compliance metrics, like stale accounts, passwords that never expire. So these are the kind of things that right off the bat we're going to look at and automate some compliance stuff right off the bat. Next, we're going to bring in 5 threat intelligent feeds. We're going to add in darknet monitoring to bring in, now that we have the users, we can now look for those users to see if they've been involved in a data breach. We do include honeypots. These are just machines that are, basically fake machines that send off signals of what they are. And then if we see anything in those honeypots, if anybody tries to go to those, it'll show a detection. We bring in 5 threat intelligent feeds. We're using things like CISA, VirusTotal, Open Threat Exchange. These are used by hundreds of countries and millions of users. And any known threat, we're going to be able to automatically look for the IPs through the entire data lake. We are using AI and machine learning. This is a big one. I wouldn't buy any platform that is not using AI and machine learning, because what the attackers are dependent on is being able to get in and start to move around in your network and start to use legitimate tools. Well, what behavior analysis does is it looks at the user or the machine and then looks for what they're doing that would be anomalous. So as we start to use UEBA to be able to build baselines and look for things that are out of that baseline, that's how we're able to detect new threats and be able to do it very, very quickly. The Adlumin agent will also have these little canary files that we place into the system. So whatever antivirus or endpoint product you're using, this will be an additional layer for ransomware and data exfiltration, and we'll be able to, if we see any exfiltration or ransomware events against those files, we'll immediately isolate the system, disable the Active Directory account, and kill the processes all the way up to the grandparent. So there's just a tremendous amount of things that we're doing to analyze and respond to the data. And then on top of that, we'll have the detections, and then we'll have the response or automated containment built into the platform. And then on top of that, you're going to have a team, a human team that's watching, managing, and responding 24/7. So that is really what we're going to show you in the demo here in just a second. And so just to kind of recap, some of the advantages of the Adlumin platform is, one, we are using AI, we're automating, we're automating detection, we're automating response. You do have full access to the platform. There are some of our competitors where the back-end SOC may use something completely different than what the customer sees. That's not the case here at Adlumin or Enable. What you're seeing on the back end, that our team sees on the back end, is the exact same system that you see. There's nothing hidden. We have complete transparency. If you want to see what our SOC's doing, if they're clearing alerts, whatever it is, you want to go research your own data, you want to look at your own logs, you can. So all that will be built into the platform. Deep security insights and reporting and compliance all built into the platform. Technology agnostic, you can use whatever security tools you want and bring them to us as you are, and we'll take that in and we'll start to detect off the stuff that you're using, whatever stack that is. If you're using an antivirus or an endpoint or a firewall and you want to switch it to another vendor, that is completely okay. We're not dictating the security stack that you want to use. Advanced remediation for stronger protection. Again, being able to quickly see the problem and respond to the problem, and then again being able to deploy, ease of deployment, making this whole thing up and running very, very seamlessly and easy. That is probably what I would consider one of our greatest values, is to be able to deploy very quickly and not just get the data in there, but to have all the rules and the detections and everything working the way that it needs to. It doesn't mean we don't have customization in the platform. We do, but 99% or 95% of what you'll need will be ready to go right off the bat. For any of you that want to contact me, I've left my email address here. You're welcome to send me an email, also, able to reach out to me if you need anything at all. So right now we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and we're going to move into the demo part of the section. We'll take about 15 to 20 minutes here, and then we'll leave some time for question and answers. Okay. What you're looking at now is the Adlumin. This is the platform. This is the dashboard. I'm going to start with the very basics, and then we'll kind of move up. There's like 5 different topics that I really like to talk about. The first one that I'm going to talk about is you're going to see the dashboard right off the bat. So as you look at this dashboard, what you're going to see is something different than what you'll see in a lot of MDR dashboards. You're going to see, detections, right? The different types of detections that are coming into the system. And you can see that these are highs and criticals here. You'll see medium lows, informationals over here. But these detections are, kind of showing us what's happening in our environment. And then you're seeing compliance insights. This is some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier about, like a group policy violation. And really what this is doing is when you look at like locked out accounts, yours is set to 0, where the expected setting would be 6 or less. So these are things that are set by the PCI policy. What we'll do is we'll automatically ingest your Active Directory, and now we start to look at compliance from a compliance level if things are set up correctly. I really like this about Adlumin because it's not just trying to detect security problems, it's trying to detect issues inside your environment that would allow an attacker to easily move throughout your network. So things like a stale account, these are things that shouldn't be there, right? It's an account that's enabled, it's not locked out, it hasn't been used in 3 months, it's not allowed, by the PCI framework, NIST framework, HIPAA framework. You're just not allowed right here, right? Remove, disable inactive users within 90 days. And so we're showing you all those things that could get you in trouble. We're also looking at what I call the Network Health Index score. That kind of folds into, we're looking at privileged domain, privileged local, and some other factors that we think are important. And then as you look across the dashboard here, you're going to see at-risk systems, at-risk shares, at-risk groups. This is where we've overprivileged these things. So as you become an Adlumin customer, or you do a proof of value where we let you try this in a free trial, you'll get to have these insights right off the bat. And then you'll have this thing called a Network Health Index score. Today it's not very good, right? It's poor. What we really achieve for our customers is that we want them to stay in this excellent category here. That includes answering detections and managing all these different factors that are breaking down the score here. So these things are the things that are causing our score to be degraded, and that's all being, you could say, gamified in this main platform. Now, from an Adlumin perspective, we are looking and managing. If you're an MDR customer, what's really becomes important. I'm going to switch over to this other platform to be able to show the MDR dashboard. As we go into this dashboard over here, as these detections come in and they start to come in here, what will happen is, what I like to show customers first is, this is what we call the MDR dashboard, and this will show you the total amount of events that are being ingested from all your security telemetry, your systems, your cloud, your firewalls, everything. This is all the events that are coming in. Now, what the Adlumin team will do when you're managed is they're going to look at everything first, whether with its automation or with our team, and then we're going to determine the things that would be escalated or sent over as a ticket. And as I look at these, this would be the escalation tab, where I would be able to come in and see the things that have been escalated by the Adlumin team. Again, freeing up time for you to be able to just focus on the things that are being sent over. You'll see here you got a waiting customer review. You'll be able to look at the actual event. You can look at the notes from the SOC. but you can come in, you could resolve that issue right from here. And so when I talk to customers and kind of say, what's your responsibility? Well, we're going to be looking at everything and monitoring everything for you 24/7, 365 days a year. The only things that we're going to ask from a customer's perspective is just to look at these escalations. Now, if something gets more serious, we may call you, right? We have a phone tree up here, and we're going to reach out to you. If it's something really serious happening in your environment, we're going to watch that 24/7, nights, weekends, holidays. We may call you in the middle of the night if something's severe enough. And those are the types of things that you want to be able to go to bed and know that someone's got this handled for you. And that's exactly what we're doing from a cybersecurity perspective. Now, the escalations, I like this tab as well because it kind of shows you what's happening in your environment. You've got, status of what's, kind of happening overall. You've got severity, what type of detections, closed, top detections, what's happening on a day-to-day basis in your environment, and just gives you a really great executive overview of what's kind of going on in your environment. Now, to be able to get these detections, we have to start with getting your data into the platform. And so the first thing that we're going to do to be able to deploy in that 60 to 90 minutes is that we are going to first deploy agents. These really take just a second, very lightweight. There's not a lot of delay. You don't have to reboot. We put these on domain controllers all day long in the middle of the day. So we'll start off with the Windows agent. We have a Mac agent, VDI agent. This is for machines that get deprecated daily. Linux agent, and we've made some great improvements on the Linux agent as well. So we've got really great coverage across all the operating systems. If you do happen to be a community bank or a credit union, we even support Unix for core banking systems. That's kind of the beginning of Adlumin, where we started. So I'd say pretty much from an operating system perspective, we cover everything. The next we have the syslog collector. This is a small VM that goes on your environment. And this is really the only thing we deploy in your environment that's like an appliance. It's a virtual appliance. What this is doing is it's taking all the firewall logs or any on-prem logs. We point those logs to the collector. They get encrypted and then sent up to the Adlumin data lake or Adlumin platform pretty much automatically. Like that's all happening seamlessly in here. So that's how we're getting in both system and syslog. And then the third type of integration that we'll have will be what I call API-driven detections or API integrations. So things like the Microsoft environment, you'll see Azure, but it's really a collection of all the Microsoft data. Now, what will happen is we'll have really great documentation, but we'll help you deploy. Part of the service of Adlumin is we'll actually help you get up and running and deployed. We're going to bring in things like the Entra ID, Exchange, SharePoint, audit logs. We'll bring in Defender if you're using that. We'll bring in Entra ID or Intune. So pretty much everything in the Microsoft environment comes in with one simple integration to their API. And then those logs will go directly from Microsoft to the Adlumin platform. The logs will come in down below. You'll see that they come in a raw format. This is a very hard to read format. And then we do something called parsing. Break it down into something that's much easier to read and to be able to understand. We'll also allow you to search those logs with Lucene language, which is extremely simple. This is the entire instructions on how to search. We use operators called ands, ors, and nots, and this allows us to be able to add things or subtract things from a search field. We will also map out on a map everywhere that people are logging in. If we're starting to see things logging in from other countries, we'll see that. We're also using our AI and machine learning to look for things like foreign country compromise, impossible travel, things like that. So those are all things that we're doing. We're also running all the IPs through threat intelligence. We bring in 5 threat intelligence feeds and run it all that way. Other integrations will also be API. Common ones would be things like a SentinelOne or a CrowdStrike. We'll see other things like network security tools, email security tools, like a Mimecast or a Proofpoint. We'll have identity stuff around, like an Okta or Duo, things like Cato. There's all sorts of different integrations that we would call API driven. And then if you want to bring in a custom log source that's syslog, we have custom buckets that you can rename and you can add them and put whatever data you want to them. You can even write your own rules and things like that to be able to detect off something that's custom. So we really do give you the ability, but this shouldn't be something that's common. Most of what you're going to need is going to be deployed right off the bat. So once we have the data coming in, the next thing I'd talk about is how we're going to detect. And the first, let's go here first. Let's go to enhanced monitoring. I talk about 3 different types of rules that are sitting inside of Adlumin. There's also things like perimeter defense. This is basically doing external scans. Darknet exposure looks at users to see if they've been involved in data breaches. These could also be detections, but the 3 main types that I like to talk about would be what I call system or active directory monitoring, and these are what I call tracking events. This is the lowest level of tracking. So for example, a system's added to a privileged group, we may want a high alert. That doesn't happen very often, and it's extremely dangerous if it does. Then if you want that detection, then we can quickly come in and we could add that through a list of events. And then we could say we want that to be, on domain controllers, or maybe we want it to be global, and then we can add what severity it is. That's what I call our lowest level of detection. The second level is what I would call detections that are already written for you. And these would be, you can see you could write your own custom detections, and they would be these would be your own custom rules. But this here would be rules that Adlumin's already written. And really the most complicated part about deploying these products is you won't know what an attacker is going to do because you won't have 8,000 customers. You think about that SOC report that we showed earlier. We've got lots of experience with lots of customers. We're seeing lots of things, and we know what attackers do when they come in, and then we look for those things with different rules. So one of the things I like to show is just the amount of rules we have for Office 365. You'll see that there's a tremendous amount of things that we're looking for, but one of those things, it's pretty easy to understand. What I'll say to customers, it's like, look, here's a detection. If someone logs in from a known malicious IP address, we know it's bad, then we're going to have a rule written for you coming off of that log source that you don't have to write. Like the Adlumin team's already written all this stuff for you. When you deploy, all these rules are here and in place. Now I could hit edit here, and I can actually see what's happening. This is the rule. This is the severity. This is the action that will happen. So it's really great because we had that discussion earlier about what we would do automatically. Well, in this case, we know the action that if someone's coming in from a bad IP address, something's wrong. So in this case, we're going to do a SOAR action where we're going to disable that account. Now we could change the action in here. We could change the severity in here. So there is customization, but day one, right out of the box, if someone logs in from a known bad malicious IP, we're going to block that and we're going to disable that Active Directory user. And we go after both the domain controller if you're using hybrid, and after Azure Entra ID. Both of those will be taken out at once. So that is custom detections. That we're also looking for things like hacking techniques. We'll see attackers come in and try to dump your Active Directory database. We'll see them come in and try to delete shadow copies to inhibit backups, to inhibit recovery. There's a whole playlist of things that we've written rules for. When we see customers real environments, something happens, and we'll write new rules. So that's your traditional form of rule writing and sim writing. But the next one would be more along the lines of machine learning. Unfortunately, the example that I have is not in here this morning, unless they've added it. They were supposed to seed it back in, and I don't know if it's here or not yet. But this detection will, what this detection does is it's using machine learning to be able to look for a user and see where they normally log in, and then it'll look to see what machines they normally use. It'll look to see what programs they normally use, if they use PowerShell. There's all sorts of things that it looks at from a user perspective to see puts them into a baseline, what's normal for that user or that machine. And then once they go outside of that normal zone, then we'll automatically trigger, in this case, a lateral movement detection. It'll map out, hey, you're logging into a whole bunch of machines that you've never logged into. So those are some really great examples. Other examples of machine learning would be things like logging into a foreign country or impossible travel. So these things will have SOAR actions. So if you log in from Kentucky and then you log in from California within an hour, we know that that's impossible. So we would potentially disable that account with the SOAR action. Now, as we get more and more advanced on this, we're starting to see cross correlation between different log sources, and then we're able to, depending on the severity of what's happening, we may decide to reset the password or disable the account. We can also manually go in and we can grab, a user, and we could disable that. We could restrict time of day. We could reset the password from here. So without having to go into other tools to be able to do that. Endpoints, we can grab machines and we can isolate, de-isolate, reboot, power off, kill processes. On your firewall level, we can add this URL here, and then we're able to block malicious IPs. So there's just a tremendous amount of things that we're able to do from this one pane of glass to be able to respond. Got about 2 minutes, and then I'll take question and answers to kind of follow up or kind of end here. And there's some other things that we do around ransomware data exfiltration. We talked a little bit about this. This is where we use those canary files. If someone tries to do any ransomware or data exfiltration techniques, then we'll immediately kill the process, isolate the system, disable the account. We've got a tremendous amount of reporting in here. So we started with banks and credit unions as our primary customer type. We support and protect about 800 banks or credit unions, financial institutions today. And a lot of those will require what I call executive level reporting. These are PDF pictures, something that's really high level, not into the details. These are also what I'd call PDF level reporting, or graphical reports. These are really great for telling a quick story. The next type would be ones that customers that have, like an FFIC audit or a compliance officer coming in for HIPAA. Then they're going to come in and they're going to ask for certain types of activity and audit level reporting. And if you do have an audit and you're under compliance, you have to produce certain data that that you can prove that you're collecting it and that you're able to access it and give that to the auditor. So for example, you want to have an activity report on a particular user, and I wanted that for the last 30 days, I could build that report within just a few seconds. If I wanted to see all changes in Active Directory over the last 30 days, I could do that and build that very, very quickly. These audit level reporting, these are other reports that auditors will ask. Some of the strengths of Adlumin is that we have some of the best reporting in our platform out of the box day one. Along with that, you can also create your own custom reports if you want. And then we also do have some of the compliance frameworks built into the platform. For example, this is the PCI assessment and all of the questionnaires, all the questions that would be asked if you were doing a PCI audit, and then we're going to kind of track how you're doing over time. But there's a lot. These frameworks have a lot of questions that you have to be able to do to be able to pass a PCI audit, and we give you a place to be able to monitor and track those things. Again, with users, we give you some really great insights into the user itself. So I can look at a user, I can see kind of all the things that are happening. Are there any events? Are there, what's their pattern of life? What kind of machines are they logging in, detection? So this kind of gives you a quick overview of what's happening on a user. We also give you access to be able to visualize what that user has access. So very, very important to be able to understand what a user is doing, what do they have access to, what machines they're getting on, and have a lot of that automated so that we can look for risk. That's where we kind of pull back on, the at-risk systems, at-risk shares, at-risk groups to be able to do a good job of looking at those users and those systems to see if we've overprivileged or given too much access. So that's kind of the main part. Again, I would kind of say really to sum it up with what Adlumin is doing is we're collecting all your security data. We're analyzing it. We're writing the proper rules and detections. We're responding with automation and with our human team to be able to protect you 24/7, 365 days a year. I look forward to being able to talk with any of you individually, or right now we're going to open it up to see if there's any questions or answers.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Paul. That was a really great overview of both Adlumin and the landscape. I'm going to start us off with one question for you. Out of all the things you're seeing, all the stats, all the data, what kind of keeps you up at night? What's that one thing that you're looking at more than others? And then I'm curious too, as a side question to that, is what keeps the clients up that are using Adlumin? Are they the same things that you're looking at, or are they different?
No, the things that keep me up is, well, if one of our customers got breached, I would take that very serious. The fact that we take that responsibility to protect a customer. And I've done this my entire career, whether I work for an endpoint company or a firewall company. It's very disappointing when the tools don't do what they say. But at this point, the thing that scares me the most is the attackers are so good that we almost have to expect that they will do bad things, and they're really good at their jobs. And I know that's bad, because we should say we're really good at our jobs too. But the things that keep me up is that we do everything we can, and then we still get a breach. But what I can tell you, what I've seen, if you really closely pay attention to the things that we're talking about today, looking at your users, implementing all those different levels of tools, MDR, MFA, patching, security awareness training, having immutable backups in case everything goes south. What happens in real cases is customers that I've seen that actually get breached, they do have the tools in place, but maybe they're a little lax in some aspect that the attacker is going to take advantage of, and then that's where they end up getting breached. And it's really heartbreaking to me to see customers, because you think of backups as being the last resort. When those don't work, it is probably the most heartbreaking thing that would keep me up at night. Like if your backups don't work, again, we're trying to prevent all that, but we've seen customers where they get to the end game and they still don't have their backups, and that is heartbreaking for sure, because they're in a bad position. They either pay and they try to recover from really old data, or that takes some weeks or months to be able to get back up and recover. It's extremely painful. And I'd say the customers' fears are pretty much the same. I talk to a lot of customers. Their fear is, that they're going to end up in the news, or they're going to get fired. Like IT people, I almost feel bad for IT in general, because the amount of pressure that an IT person now has for an SMB. Again, they're not security specialists. If they had all day to look for threats in their environment, they probably could do a good job at it. But the reality is most IT people got way too much on their plate. They've got too many things they're worrying about. and security comes to be a second level of things they have to worry about and do. And getting into those things and responding quickly is just difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you, Paul. Looks like we don't have any additional questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out because we're approaching time. Paul, I just want to thank you again. I want to thank everyone that attended our webinar. Really a great conversation on the cybersecurity trends and the threat landscape that we're facing. And so we appreciate you diving into the demo of how Adlumin and the MDR services will really protect those threats. So thank you for that, Paul.
Yeah,
as a reminder, as a reminder for all the attendees and registrants for today's call and webinar, we'll be emailing you that free copy of the 2025 Annual Threat Report, SMBs in the Crosshairs. So Enable and Adlumin did a great job with that report, and we're excited to send that out. It's packed with real data, practical takeaways, so it'll be a great guide and a great resource for you all. Additionally, this webinar will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you know folks that should benefit from hearing about Adlumin's technology and platform, learning about the threat landscape, please feel free to send that discussion over to them. We will also be uploading this to social media. And then just a quick update, really here at Mirazon, our goal is to utilize technology to elevate business. So our core service is really managed services, cybersecurity, and IT consulting. And so please stay tuned for more webinars coming from us. And if your company needs assistance with cybersecurity solutions, would like more information about the Adlumin platform and service, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to connect you with Paul at Adlumin. And you can reach out to us at info@mirazon.com or visit our website at mirazon.com as well. So our team would be happy to help with that. Thank you again, Paul. With that, the webinar is officially complete, and I wish everyone a great afternoon.